Martin Scorsese really is a unicorn. He's the kind of filmmaker who has, over the last 50 years, been able to achieve a level of artistic and financial success that few other filmmakers have been able to even come close to. To make a film, a halfway decent film, requires so much intention, focus, and care. That's to make a decent film. To make a great film, that requires an artist's everything, their life, their soul, their entire being poured into the creation of that thing. And I should say, I really do try as often as I can to avoid overusing the term masterpiece. But from my estimation, Martin Scorsese has made at least 4, and The Irishman may well be one of them. Truthfully, though, the thing that really makes this legend a unicorn in the film industry has simply been his endurance and staying power. Because filmmaking requires so much from the filmmaker, just like we were talking about, it has been, for the most part, over the last 100 years, been a young person's game. And when it hasn't been, when a filmmaker has refused to retire, choosing instead to continue to tell stories into their old age, in some instances, not all instances, but in some instances that has shown in some rather unfortunate ways. A filmmaker's films which once possessed such urgency and earnestness and truth can begin to feel just a little tired and repetitive and out of touch. That, however, has not been the case with Martin Scorsese. I mean, good golly, the guy is pushing 80 and he's still able to make a film like The Wolf of Wall Street and like Silence and like The Irishman. Films that feel so incredibly youthful in their style, spirit, and inventiveness. I mean, some of the ways that Scorsese shot and edited some of the sequences in this film were truly breathtaking to behold in just their energy and power. At the same time, in the best possible way, this film was also so clearly made by someone who was, at the time of its making, around 75 years old. You can just tell that the person behind the camera is in complete mastery of their craft, and really just not plagued by so many of the insecurities that younger filmmakers have. For example, Scorsese chose to make a 3.5-hour movie, which is bold to say the least, and was able to do so without it ever feeling self-indulgent, which is also just a miracle. Instead, that mammoth runtime served a purpose. It beautifully immersed me in a man's life, one filled with triumphs and joy as well as loss and regrets, feelings that felt so powerfully personal to the man behind the camera. To further just heap praise on Martin Scorsese and his direction in The Irishman, I just cannot get over how amazing the performances were that he pulled out of his actors in this film. I mean, let's just admit it right now, we've all seen a film, perhaps recently, where an aging star has been pulled out of retirement to return to some iconic role or to reteam with some big director, and it's just been, at least in certain instances, just a little embarrassing. That person's time by the pool and on the golf course has clearly just dimmed the spark that once made them famous all those years ago. So, with that said, bravo to Joe Pesci for just killing it in this film, and bravo to Martin Scorsese for knowing just what to say to him to A, pull him out of retirement, and B, make that return worth his while. And while on the topic of acting, you know that we've got to talk about Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in this film. Two actors whose performances were just as fresh and exciting and energetic and just infused with that, I'm here on a set acting, and this is important to me, and I'm so thankful that I am kind of energy that we saw in their characters and performances 40 years ago in things like The Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon and Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. And like Scorsese's direction as well, it wasn't just always all the time big and bombastic and energetic. In the appropriate instances, it was also so bravely quiet and subtle and nuanced. And really watching this film was just watching a masterclass in how to seamlessly segue between those two tones and those two styles. Now, unfortunately, I can't go into too much detail without spoiling things, but there was a very tense sequence later on in this film. A sequence filled with dread that just builds and builds and builds. And while a younger director might be tempted to superficially ratchet up those feelings with fast cuts or over-the-top suspense music, Scorsese plays it so patiently and so quietly. Again, with the confidence of a man who's been around the block a number of times and has lost a lot of the younger insecurities that might have plagued him in his earlier years. And ultimately, he gave us a sequence that so much more accurately captures moments like the ones that we're watching. Moments that other films so often want to make us believe are epic and climactic and emotionally explosive, but in actuality are quite often deflatingly haphazard and subtle and even common and pedestrian. Now, I really cannot finish this review without addressing the elephant in the room, an elephant that I'm pretty sure once you guys have watched this film will no longer be there at all, that being the de-aging. Now, let me just put it like this. If the de-aging is not made a big deal by you, the viewer, it will cease to be a big deal in the film. Yes, there are absolutely moments, especially earlier on in the film, where that de-aging is not amazing, making the actors look more than a little waxy and fake. But, fortunately, because so much of this film is played with those de-aged versions of the characters, I personally found myself just accepting a look and moving on and enjoying the story for what it was. Now, while of course I have no way of knowing, and if I were to guess, I would say that this will not be the case, but if this, in fact, turns out to be Martin Scorsese's last film, I myself think that it is a really fitting, beautiful conclusion to a phenomenal career. Why? Well, again, I want to avoid going into too many spoilers, but the way that this film ends is just, it feels so personal and so poignant to probably what Scorsese is thinking and feeling in his own life and career right now. And for that, I just want to say, not that Scorsese is ever going to watch this, but I still want to say thank you, Martin Scorsese, for allowing me, the viewer, to, over the years, not only get to know the characters in your film, but allow us and me to get to know you through those characters. So again, thank you so much. It has been inspiring and wonderful to behold such amazing pieces of art. And for all these reasons, I'll give the film a 5 out of 5 and a heart. Yes, this year seems to be the year of 5 out of 5s. Maybe I'm becoming a bit of a softie, or maybe this is just the time when some really amazing films have come out. I've got to know, what is your guys' personal favorite Martin Scorsese film? I think for me it is Taxi Driver, although Irishman is really up there quite a ways. Goodfellas is incredible as well. Finally, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.